Welcome sa ating channel mga kaibigan. Pag-uusapan po natin ngayon ang isa sa mga pinaka-requested na PC build ngayong pandemic, the 35K more or less budget PC build. Ngayon, bakit 35K more or less? Dahil nga po ngayong pandemic, pwedeng 37, 39, or even 40K itong PC build natin. But if hindi po siya pandemic, nasa around 30K plus lang po siya. Ngayon, to make this video relevant even after pandemic, I also integrate a lot of topics like, of course, GTX 1650 versus RX 570, higher core count versus higher frequency, and a lot of things pagdating sa ating step-by-step build. Dahil hindi ko po gagawin yung time-lapse, I will add a lot of tips as we put together all of the components. Yan po yung abangan nyo mamaya until the end of this video because i-announce din po natin ang mga mechanics on how to win a worth 90K plus PC build or a worth 175K plus PC build from Asus. I-announce po natin yan sa end ng ating video on how to win those PC builds. You have your 2 chances, and as we wait that part, feel free to comment down below to interact with our community, and for more videos like this, feel free to subscribe. This video is brought to you by SCDKey, the best website that you may visit in terms of very affordable deals and best offer para sa application softwares, games, and yes, operating system. And there you are, you may check the Windows 10 Pro, and by using our promo code, ma-avail mo lang siya ng around $14.95 or 700 plus pesos. That's it mga kaibigan, check the description below. May mga links po tayo dyan to go directly sa kanilang website. Tulad yun na sinabi ko kanina, to compress this video, wala na po tayong time-lapse na gagawin. Let's go straight to the point and talk about this step-by-step on how we put together all of the components. Starting with the motherboard. Motherboard po ang una naming nilalabas pagdating sa PC build. Bakit? Because dito nga natin i-install ang ilan sa mga major components ng ating PC. That is first, the processor. Ang titingnan mo lang naman sa installation ng processor is look for that arrow sign. Yan lang po yung hanapin mo sa isa sa mga corner ng processor, same with dun sa kanyang socket. And pag nahanap mo na yun sa socket ng motherboard, itaas mo lang yung lever and mount yung processor, then push it back until may marinig kang click. So yun yung sign na ibig sabihin nag-lock na yung processor sa ating motherboard. Ngayon, commonly pagdating sa mga stock coolers ng processor, you need to remove those 2 plastic brackets. And after removing those, then let's install the RAM or vice versa. Depende na lang po sa iyo kung anong gusto mong gawin dahil nga po sa pag-install ng RAM, hindi mo naman kailangan kagad ng screwdriver. Ngayon, ang gagawin mo lang naman dito mga kaibigan is of course, kung 4 po yung RAM sticks, plug it anywhere sa mga RAM slots ng motherboard. Pero kung 2 lang po, which is commonly the case, especially if we are just starting our PC build or it's our first PC build, ang gagawin mo po is check the manual on how to arrange those memory para mag-dual channel mode. Pero in common cases, i-install mo po yung isang RAM sa outermost slot and yung isa is a third slot. So, ibig sabihin, meron pong isang slot na bakante between the RAMs. Ganun lang po. Pero better to check the manual before you do it. That is the best thing to do in installation of RAM. After that, install the M.2 SSD. Pero kung wala pong M.2 SSD or NVMe SSD, then you may just skip that and let's install the motherboard sa loob ng chassis. Pero dito ngayon magkakaroon tayo ng dalawang pattern. Pwede po nating install muna yung power supply before we will install the motherboard, or pwede nating install muna yung motherboard before we will install the power supply. Bakit ko sinasuggest na mag-install muna ng power supply before the motherboard? Dahil ang casing po natin ngayon is a micro ATX, which is may chance na pagdating sa clearance, medyo tight po siya pagdating sa pagra-route ng cable papuntang 12-volt supply ng motherboards. Then, install the motherboard para hindi tayo mahirapan later. That is my common advice, especially if you are dealing with mini ITX or micro ATX chassis. Pero kung ATX po yan, kahit ihuli mo na yung power supply, kahit ihuli mo na yung pag-route ng mga cables. Pero commonly, pagdating sa mga budget motherboards, kailangan mo munang install yung backplate before you can install the motherboard. After the installation of motherboard, syempre, install na natin yung mga storage. Kung SSD po yung gamit natin, like SATA SSD, you can just look for any hole sa mismong back panel ng chassis. Kadalasan malapit po yan sa mismong front panel kung saan mayroon ka makikitang SSD label kung saan ka pwedeng maglagay or mag-install ng SATA SSD. Pero I highly suggest na for the sake of cable management, kung meron namang paglalagyan ng SSD sa mismong HDD cage, better dun mo install yung SSD para mas madali yung pag-route ng cables. Now, lastly is of course the video card. That is the most important component and yan po yung pinakahuli nating i-install. Simple lang din po ang pag-install ng video card. Just remove 2 expansion slot covers. Pero actually, ito po yung isa sa mga pinaka-commonly encountered na problem pagdating sa PC building. Dahil kadalasan sa atin, nakakalimutan natin magtanggal ng expansion slot covers before we will install the motherboard. Pero actually, before po natin dapat in-install yung motherboard, ang ginawa muna natin is hindi muna natin in-screw, nilapat muna natin yung video card kung saan tatapat na expansion slot cover para tanggalin muna natin yun lalong-lalo na pagdating sa budget cases. Dahil kadalasan po yan naka-solder or naka-weld lang po yan. And pag tinanggal mo po, hindi muna po yun matatanggal ng basta-basta kung naka-install na po yung motherboard. Especially that kung merong tatamaan na electronic component or SMD component. So at this point, this step-by-step guide is just applicable based on the chassis na naka-screw yung expansion slot covers. Pag hindi po naka-screw, let's insert that part na before you install the motherboard or screw the motherboard para hindi ka magbabaklas later, dapat isukat mo muna yung video card. Pero in most cases again, kadalasan ng expansion slot cover na tinatanggal is yung second to the top and third to the top. Yan po. Pero not always the case, especially if you are dealing with an ASRock motherboard. Pero if you are dealing with Gigabyte, MSI, or Asus, iisa lang po kadalasan yung pattern. Another tip pagdating sa installation ng video card sa huli is route the PCIe cables first, especially pagdating sa micro ATX. Kasi ang micro ATX casing, yung clearance po ng video card at saka yung PSU shroud is halos wala na pong 1 meter yan. That is very common if not all of the time. And struggle na po yun sa pagtatanggal pa lang ng video card ulit para lang i-route yung PCIe cable ng power supply. Pagdating naman po sa mga cables, front panel cables, etc., you may just check the manual. And for more details about that, let's reserve that sa ating susunod na video. Now, let's go and jump sa ating benchmark GTX 1650 and RYZEN 3 3300X. Yan po yung 35K more or less PC build natin with the stock cooler. Wala pong kasamang AIO. The AIO that is installed in here will be discussed later. Bakit nakalagay po yan? But that is for upgrade path purposes. Now, going back sa ating GTX 1650 and 3300X, makikita nyo po mga kaibigan that this 1080p gaming PC is really good for eSports gaming. Now, going further pagdating sa GTX 1650 is we will compare it with RX 570. How is it going as of now, July 2021? While RX 570 and GTX 1650 is compared before pagdating sa streaming, and of course, NVIDIA have the edge pagdating sa NVENC encoder. Pero kung gaming benchmark alone ang pag-uusapan natin, GTX 1650 is inferior sa RX 570. Mapapansin niyo naman po mga kaibigan yan sa ating side-by-side comparison with AAA game and Dota 2 as one of the esports game. Now, what I want to show you in here is the close preview between these two video cards. Mapapansin natin at the start of the game, makikita nyo GTX 1650 is performing better pagdating sa average FPS compared sa RX 570. Pero as we move forward, makikita nyo po the RX 570 during clash, kung saan mas marami ng effects, details ang magpapakita, the RX 570 is slowly dominating over the GTX 1650. Mapapansin nyo rin that there are certain times na mas maraming beses na nag-dip yung FPS ng GTX 1650 versus RX 570. What's the reason of this? Now look at the other graph, that the GTX 1650 got a higher max FPS. The average FPS is partially or marginally the same. And makikita nyo naman dito sa 1% low that the GTX 1650 is way lower compared sa RX 570. Now, what's the relation between this benchmark? Ang ibig sabihin lang po neto, average FPS is sometimes misleading us pagdating sa total performance na isang video card. This is where the importance of 1% low or something that is called minimum average FPS. Dahil in the end of the day, FPS is not what we see. What we see in actual or in reality is about the smoothness of the gameplay. How smooth is the experience. And that can be dictated by not the average FPS, but actually by the minimum average FPS or 1% low. By the times na hindi tayo naka-encounter ng stutter. By the times na hindi tayo naka-encounter ng FPS drop na biglang nagkaroon ng stop dance delay during gaming. Dahil aanhin mo ang mataas na FPS kung paminsan-minsan naman nagkakaroon ng stop dance or kung in crucial moments like clash sa Dota 2 nagkakaproblema ka or nagkakaroon ng delay yung PC mo. Di ba? That is the reason kung bakit minsan may mga nagko-comment dito na sana nag-RX 570 ka na lang. Pero sad to say mga kaibigan, it's pandemic. Wala pong RX 570 and bibihira po yan. And medyo reasonable na rin na mag GTX 1650 tayo kasi halos yung RX 570 nasa 20K ang presyo. Samantala sa GTX 1650 kahit paano 5K or 3K lower than the RX 570. And pagdating naman sa availability, halos lahat ng local stores meron compared sa RX 570 na as of now, ang hirap. Baka sa online wala pa tayong mahanap. Yan yung kadalasang issue natin ngayong pandemic. That is why I'm always giving you two options. And the same with the processor, I will also give you two options, the 3300X and the 3500. Now, what's the reason why I added these two processors for this 35K more or less PC build? Kadalasan kasi itong mga processor na to is magkatugma lang yung presyo. Pero Ryzen 5 3500 is 6 cores and Ryzen 3 3300X is 4 cores. Higher frequency ang 3300X over the 3500, pero higher core count naman ang 3500 over the 3300X. With this side-by-side comparison, makikita niyo dito mga kaibigan that the 3500 and 3300X, despite of that lower core count, pagdating sa 3300X, naisalba naman po siya ng higher frequency even with the CPU-intensive game na Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Makikita nyo yung average result ng kanilang FPS at the end of this video is just the same. Ngayon, CPU-intensive po yan. Pero pagdating po sa esports games where the higher frequency processor will dominate over the higher core count, makikita na natin that 3300X is performing better over the 3500. That only means that frequency is better pagdating sa gaming or is a must thing to consider pagdating sa gaming over core count. Pero kung if you are also into production, mapapansin din natin dito sa ating benchmark that 3500 even beats that GTX 1650 pagdating sa rendering, which is pagdating sa rendering, even architects, engineers may agree that we always go for the video card para sa mas mabilis na process. Pero at this time around, the Ryzen 5 3500, a budget processor, even beats GTX 1650 and yes, way too far over the 3300X. Now, anong ibig sabihin na to? 3300X is the go-to processor kung into gaming ka. Pero if you also consider production, like you will be also using your PC for rendering videos, Photoshop, AutoCAD, basic structural 3D designs, then you may settle down with Ryzen 5 3500. Pero yun nga, there's no significantly wrong choice between the two. Like if there's no stock of 3300X, then you may settle down with 3500. Kung walang stock ng 3500, then no choice ka, settle down with the 3300X unless meron pang Ryzen 5 2600. Pero I doubt that there is. Now to end this video, I want also to show you guys what is the difference or the advantage of having a better cooling system. With the 3300X, during gaming or during rendering, mapapansin natin that the temperature is now almost hitting 85 degrees Celsius or even higher than 85 degrees Celsius at most cases during the benchmark. And tulad ng sinasabi natin, electronic is electronic. If there's too much heat, of course, there's also shorter lifespan. And if that will be persistent with the 3300X, kailangan nating mag-upgrade ng cooler. Before I will end this video, syempre i-announce po natin ang Asus PC Build giveaway. Magpapag-giveaway po sila ng 175K plus PC Build and 90K plus PC Build. Dalawa po yung chance nating manalo. Simpleng-simple lang po yung gagawin. Medyo may kahabaan lang po yung steps, pero ito lang po yung highlights niyan. What you will do is purchase an Asus product with at least 3K value. And then, i-register natin dyan through that link. Nakalink po yan sa ating video description below. Nandyan po din lahat ng mga steps. And then, just follow the steps and be sure to avail those products sa mga certified resellers na nandyan po sa ating link. Base po yan sa kung ilang components yung binili mo. So kung build yung ginawa mo, ang gagawin mo is register each components na na-avail mo with Asus brand like motherboard, casing, AIO, etc. Yan po ang Asus PC Build giveaway, and for more videos like this and giveaways, feel free to subscribe.